So tell us your story.
What do you want to know?
Talk about growing up. Here, there's the two of you. There's you and your identical twin brother. Yes. Just talk about how you decided to transition, how you felt when, I assume, when people are talking about the boys all the time, right, the two, you and your brother, that you felt, no.
Well, I was always a creative person. As a kid, I started dancing at a very young age. I was very feminine. I was majorly bullied as a kid, so I was chased home from school practically every day because I was very feminine. And that was my life growing up. So I never fit neatly into this sort of boy role. I don't really think I ever really had male privilege even because I was so feminine. I never sort of was in a boy situation in terms of my story. I was always very feminine. And for me, it was about moving past denial. And I've told this story a zillion times, but when I was in third grade, my third grade teacher, Miss Ridgway, called my mother and said, "Your son is going to end up in New Orleans wearing a dress if we don't get him into therapy right away." And the funny thing is, I was just in New Orleans a few days ago doing a talk at Tulane, so it took over 20 years for Miss Ridgway's prediction to come true. So because of that, and because of a lot of the shaming and policing of my gender that happened when I was a child, I had a lot of internalized transphobia. And it really wasn't until I moved to New York City and met actual trans people that I was able to debunk a lot of the misconceptions that I had about trans people, have empathy for them, and then have empathy and love for myself. And once I began to develop that, I was able to accept myself and then to transition.
Cece McDonald, what about your story?
Well, my story is similar to Laverne's.
Where were you born?
I was born in Chicago, Illinois. And I moved to Minnesota when I was 18. But prior to that, I was very feminine, and I grew up in a big family. My grandma and granddad had 18 kids, 9 boys, 9 girls. And like Laverne said, I grew up in a really heavily religious family, very, as people call them, Bible thumpers. So there was also a lot of policing about my femininity, and it kind of made me hate myself. It made me become, I guess, more rebellious than most teens would at that age when I got to that age. And I pretty much had a hard life. I was out on my own since I was 14, and you know, from sleeping on park benches and couch hopping and trying to figure out what I was going to do in my life. I really wanted to get a leg up, but it seemed like there was no opportunities for trans women in Chicago. And it seemed like every place I went into turned their backs on me or slammed the door in my face. And it was really hard for me to, like, figure out what I was going to do with my life. And then after some major consideration, I decided to move to Minnesota after a friend had invited me, and it didn't take me very much time to take her up on her offer because it seemed like I had nothing to go for in Chicago. And she was, you know, telling me that, you know, I can start over and there's more resources and I can get this help and that help. And so it sounded really tasteful. I wanted to, you know, expand my horizons and see what I can, you know, or how I can better myself. And so I moved to Minnesota, and that's when I actually started my transition as far as, you know, hormone therapy and finding a therapist and stuff like that. And that kind of made me build this love for other trans women, like you were saying, because, you know, you have this part of you that's unquestionable, and it's a big mystery until you meet these people, and you're like, yeah, I think I know who I am as a person. And so, you know, sometimes you get a little bad advice, sometimes you get, you know, the best advice, but it was all helpful for me in my transitioning, and, you know, and now I'm here today.